Hi, I'm Marcia Fleischman coming to you from Leawood, Kansas. I want to talk about the book that I'm working on called Prayer Without Words, 10 Ways to Connect, Converse, and Commune with God. I started thinking about writing this book after a conversation with my sister when she said, Marcia, how do you pray? And I started to tell her. I said, well, I pray this way, and I also pray that way, and I pray another way. And I realized I had several methods of prayer that I use in my everyday life. And I decided to write a book so I could invite people to practice these different modes of prayer. Now, these prayers are different. Prayer isn't just about words anymore. These prayers are experiential. They're based on moving into our heart center of knowing, connecting with God spirit to spirit, and hearing Him speak, experiencing His presence in several different ways. I served as an ordained minister at Broadway Church in Kansas City, Missouri, and was co-pastor with Paul Smith, who's the author of Integral Christianity, The Spirit's Call to Evolve. Paul and I worked together, and I learned so much about healing prayer from different speakers at Broadway, including Tony Campola, John Wimber. I went to a seminar with John Wimber, Francis McNutt, and Tommy Tyson and David Siemens, all people who came to speak at Broadway, except Wimber. I went to a big conference with him and learned a lot about healing prayer at that time, interacting with God internally. So I decided to write a book to share and invite people into the adventure of prayer. I served as a minister there for 30 years. In 2003, after 5.5 years of a fatal illness, the only way out was a double lung transplant, and I received that in St. Louis in 2003. Here it is 23 years later, and I'm still involved in the adventure of prayer and teaching about prayer. I was head of the healing prayer team, and I taught classes and seminars and workshops at Broadway Church about healing prayer. The book is comprised of an introduction into the life of the Spirit. Some people live with God, some live for God, and others live in God. I try to encourage people to live in God as an atmosphere that surrounds us and infuses us with God's presence. These prayers are most accessed through the heart center of knowing so that we can experience God in prayer. These are experiential prayers. So that's the introduction, and then the book moves on to the first section, was how to connect with God. And in that, I teach listening prayer, where we ask God a question and listen for the answer. It's best to write it down because it's so easy to forget. So I teach listening prayer and then whole body mystical awakening, which is a meditation invented by Paul Smith and practiced by the We-Space groups in ICN, Integral Christian Network, which is now a global network of practicing mystics. In that meditation, we learn to access our centers of knowing and experience God's presence in all those centers of knowing. Next, we go on to the section on how to converse with God. And in that, I teach guided meditation, and also a meditation of sitting with Jesus, where we sit with Jesus, we can see Jesus, and we talk to Him and listen to Him and see what He has to say. That also includes other light beings, other spirit guides, the Virgin Mary, for instance, or angels, or even our ancestors that will come to us in the spirit and speak to us. Next is healing of memories, where we allow memories to emerge and we see Jesus in the memory. We watch Him, listen to Him, hear what He's saying, and see what He's doing. It brings healing to the old hurts in our memories. The last of that section is on prayer language. It is traditionally known as speaking in tongues. I've seen authors write about the experience, but they never seem to include what the purpose of that phenomena is in the church today. My experience, since it was Paul Smith's gift to pray for people in his prayer language, I saw the transforming effects of that prayer on people. And I encourage people to experiment with just such a prayer language. The last section is about communing with God, sitting with God as an atmosphere that's all around us. First, we look at contemplative prayer, also called centering prayer, that was created and taught by Thomas Merton and then following by Thomas Keating. And they were proponents of contemplative prayer that includes silence. The next prayer mode is resonating prayer, which is absolutely my favorite. This is a prayer mode in which we pray for people, and instead of speaking, we go silent and listen to what God is speaking in us and say that to the person we're praying for. One woman in ICN says, God says such nice things to me when we do resonating prayer. It's my favorite, and it's transforming for people because we learn that God is a presence of love and not condemnation. Anything we hear from God feels like love. The next prayer is sending light and energy to people. It's an intercessory prayer where we pray for people at a distance. And instead of asking God to help them, we just see them surrounded by God's light and God's energy. We send that light and energy from our heart center. The last one, to end up all the prayers, is the prayer of gratitude. That's where we think from our heart, we listen to our heart, and we recognize all the wonderful things in our lives that we're grateful for, from the tiniest things to the big things. And it can boost our mood, transform our way of seeing the world, and help us be grateful for our life in God. That's an overview of the book. For a platform, I am starting a YouTube channel called Come Pray With Me. And I intend to talk about the lessons in my book and teach them, interact with people online, and pursue a wider audience for what I'm teaching in the book. I'm teaching a class here at my senior living center right now about the prayer practices, and I will be teaching again in the new year. So that's part of my platform. I also have, with my other books, I have had radio interviews, and I would like to initiate radio interviews and any other things that I can do to publish what I'm writing about to encourage people to connect with God deeply in prayer. So thank you for listening, and I hope you look at the book, and I hope you learn some things and enjoy it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.